Hey, when the pass on, we see who's a football player. We start down here.
What is going on, Rams family? We are back with another film session, and we wanted to come in here and break down Jared Verse. He was one of the guys that really made a difference this past Thursday, and if the Rams are going to take that next step, they need this young player to be able to go out there to make a difference. Being a player who was the 19th overall pick in this past draft, he has a knack for being able to impose his will on an offense, and he was doing that all night against the Vikings. And losing a player like Aaron Donald, somebody has to step up. They might not have the talent of an Aaron Donald, but if you have a guy that can go out there and be a leader on and off the field and make a difference, that'll put you in the right position for this entire defense. And seeing Jared Versus play this past game, it'll definitely get you fired up. So on this play here, it's almost unfair to line up a player like Jared Verse against tight ends. He's one of the players who plays with brute force, a trait that dates back to his college days. Verse has the ability to knock offensive linemen or tight ends off of their spot, effectively resetting the line of scrimmage. While he hasn't gotten a sack since week 1, this is the kind of impact you see from him as he gets comfortable in the NFL. So activating the system. So zooming in on Jared Verse, you see he's getting off the ball and he clashes with that tight end. And the thing is with him, he's one of those players that if he can be able to get his hands inside you, he has the lower body strength to be able to drive guys back. And playing against a guy like him, if he's able to get leverage and get close to the quarterback, he has the ability to be able to disengage and get the sack. And it's so good to be able to see this because he has that alpha dog ability and he plays with that swagger. Just looking at this guy right now, you see that he's flexing his muscles. This is what you want to see when it comes down to your edge rusher. And usually when you do have a productive player at that defensive end position, it brings the best out of everybody on that defense and make these defensive coordinators' job that much more easier. And he's one of the players that you can use on the left side or the right side. So scheming him up to go up against these tight ends, there's a high possibility that he can go out there and collapse the pocket and make a big play. And this is exactly what Jared Verse did the entire game. Here's another rep where Jared Verse completely bullied the left tackle and got his hands on a quarterback. Usually when you pressure a quarterback like that, it can force them into mistakes. This is a Vikings team that came in as one of the top teams in the NFL. So seeing Verse showcase his talents against a top tier opponent is a good sign for things to come for this defense. So we're going to split it. So keying in on Jared Verse, you can see that right arm is swinging. That guy is so motivated and he goes out there and clashes with this offensive tackle. And the thing is, getting your hands inside is extremely important. Watching him completely bench press this guy and extend his arms, shocking this player at the line of scrimmage and making a beeline straight to Sam Darnold. And a lot of these times, playing that right end position, you're at the quarterback's blind side. They do not see you coming. And this was a situation where if Sam Darnold held that ball any longer, it was going to be a sack. And seeing Jared Versus play all throughout this game, he could have had about 3 sacks against the Vikings. And I'm not saying that he is one of the most savvy pass rushers. There are things that he needs to work on as far as hand usage. But when you see a guy that can play with a high motor like this and completely bench press a player, this is how you can be able to impose your will against these offensive linemen. And once you get to the fourth quarter, they usually be tired and you can go out there and make game-changing plays. So this was another dominating rep by Jared Verse. As a defensive end in this league, you sometimes have to make savvy moves as soon as the ball is snapped. Tight ends or running backs often try to chip you and knock you off your spot. But seeing Verse make a move on a tight end and then bull rush the left tackle to get his hands on Sam Darnold, this had to be one of my favorite plays this past game. So we're going to spin a block. So watching Jared Verse evade that tight end. And the thing is that tight end didn't get a hand on him and he was able to proceed in bull rushing that offensive lineman. And when you're seeing a player like Jared Verse, he aims to get his hands inside. Seeing the power from him, the way that that offensive lineman's arms just flapped in the air, that just shows you that he has the ability to be able to shock you if he can get his hands on your pecs. And with these offensive linemen, they got to be careful with that. Having your hands on the outside, you can get holding plays. A lot of these defensive ends, they can use their push-pull techniques. You got to play with great technique when it comes down to Jared Verse. But seeing Verse still be able to get his hands on the quarterback, he didn't get the sack on this play, but these reps matter. And usually when players start gaining this type of momentum, you will see these plays a lot more as we go along in the season. And being a rookie, he had a sack in week 1, and you didn't see much from him in the sack department in the last 6 games, but that doesn't mean that he does not have the ability to impact these games. Because if you can be able to push the pocket, force the quarterback to go a different direction, then sometimes another player on a team might end up getting to the quarterback. And this is exactly why a lot of these coaches and these GMs, they want players to play with a high motor because every down matters. But seeing guys like Versus energy, down in and down out, it'll go a long way in shaping the player this rookie wants to become. Here's another play I wanted to show y'all, but it's one where Christian Darrisaw was injured. And I really hope he has a speedy recovery, and you never want to see players getting hurt. However, when evaluating this play, it was hard for me to ignore Jared Versus' sheer power. Darrisaw is no pushover, but Versus force pushed him back, causing the Rams player to collide right behind him. I definitely wanted to highlight this rep for y'all. So we'll go ahead and run it. So watching this play here, these guys get off the ball and he collides with Darrisaw. He got his hands in the inside again. That's where he gets you where he wants you. Next thing you know, Wallace tries to tackle Aaron Jones in the backfield and he runs right into him. And it's crazy because this play would have never happened if Jared Verse didn't have so much power to knock him all the way into the backfield. And we know when it comes down to the game of football, these injuries happen. So I know Darrisaw will bounce back. But when you're seeing Jared Verse having the ability to be able to do it on the left side, you can do it on the right side against offensive tackles as well as tight ends. He's one of the players that you can be able to scheme up all over the field and attack the opponent's weaknesses for sure. Here's another quick clip of him being able to fight against these tight ends. Running this play, just looking at this player completely collide with this player. And I love to be able to zoom this in when it comes down to the JC film sessions, especially when it comes down to the trenches, because you see these guys fight it out. And we know what a guy like Jared Verse, he plays angry all 4 quarters, finding a way to be able to get away from that tight end again and get in on that action. If you're going to be one of the better defenses in the NFL, you got to have all these guys going out there and rallying to the ball. It can't just be one player. But when you have a player that can be able to bully these tight ends and not only being able to get to the quarterback, find ways to be able to angle yourself and stop these running backs, this is how you can be one of the better defenders in the league. But consistency is going to be key when it comes down to this player. He's going to have to stay humble and continue to keep being a sponge because he was showing that alpha dog energy all throughout this game. So on this final play here, I like seeing Versus footwork. He used a quick hesitation step to throw off the left tackle. Sometimes the slightest move can make all the difference, and that's often all that's needed to get your hands on a ball carrier. So let's run it. So looking at this play here, you see Jared Verse, he's lurking, and he makes a quick step with his left foot. Usually, if you can be able to make the slightest movement, these offensive linemen can sometimes be clumsy. And with a guy like Jared Verse being 260 pounds, you don't want him to have a straight angle to running backs or quarterbacks because he has the ability to make game-changing plays, and this was awesome to see from him this entire game. And a lot of these players, especially these rookies, all it takes is one game, and it can be able to go out there and build confidence. And you can tell with guys like Jared Verse, his energy all throughout training camp, as well as the beginning of the season. He's one of those players that's an alpha dog that can really go out there and make a difference week in and week out. So he was definitely one of the players that really stood out this past Thursday. So it's going to be good to see how it all shakes out with a guy like Jared Verse, and being a guy that really made a difference this past game can really take you to that next step. Being a player that was picked 19th overall, they expect him to go out there and make a difference. But every situation is different. Sometimes it might take a few games for these players to get going. But when you're looking at the entire Rams team, this is a team that you should not sleep on. You see guys like Puka Nacua out there making a difference, as well as Cooper Kupp. If this defense can be able to get things going on top of Jared Versus play, I think that the Rams can be able to turn a lot of heads as we get towards the end of the season. So comment below and let me know what you guys think about Jared Versus game. And do y'all think that he can be able to build from this going forward? So make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe and hit that notification bell because the way the YouTube algorithm works, if you don't hit it, you'll miss out on fire updates and the best football film sessions on YouTube. All right, Rams Nation. Talk to y'all soon.